discussion. They brought us all together, put this movie on Convo. Joining me today are some of the stars. Goodness, absolute pleasure. Another pivotal star here. We have Shane McGee.
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
Oh, absolute backbone. So this one hurt me because Theo is a celebrated actor. I love virtually everything you do, but this one, my man. Okay. Theo Rossi, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, my brother. It's great seeing you. Blame Nate.
You know what? That's good. That's what we're gonna do. This was an absolute pleasure to see Miss Milana Jackson. You brought so much soul to we will get into that, but Miss Milana Jackson, ladies and gentlemen. And also joining us, we have Dr. Vanessa Hintz, clinical psychologist. We are going to break this down with some very, very real critical concepts that this movie invokes. And let's just jump right into it. I'm Victor Dandridge. I will be the host. And again, it is my absolute pleasure to speak to you all about American Skin. Starting off first, foremost, format, right? The found footage movies really hit a stride in the early aughts, predominantly in the horror genre, right? Is it too far to call American Skin
States of America is appropriate? And interestingly enough, if we're not careful, it can have many, many sequels.
Very true.
So I think that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't call it that.
Right.
If someone called it that, I think that I would understand the context.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to throw in on that?
Well, horror is my favorite genre. So I'm with Dr. Vanessa right there. And the thing about horror is suspense. You know, body count is essential though. And so that's where I think it kind of deviates in a different direction in terms of just reality as opposed to the horror genre. There's a, obvious antagonist, and that antagonist is on the quest to conquer the protagonist. So if you're looking at it in the sense of, I guess, like in terms of that theme, I can understand it, but the body count just does not.
Horrifying in the accuracy and in the fact that movie was made in 2019. And, here I'm in the Milwaukee area where we, last summer with Jacob Blake and everything that happened there.
Yes.
So that foreshadowing to me was terrifying. Like watching the movie, and it's very scary to me. It's very scary that we're sort of in this, Black people are in this place of stagnation where this has been the story since 1619.
Right.
So to me, that just like waking up and living the same trauma every day is to me horrifying. So I would absolutely categorize this as a horror movie.
Wow, that's so brilliantly said. Class and culture creates such specific, points of view, right, in this movie, casting pivotal characters in direct conflict. Nate, in writing American Skin, how did you manage the individualized voices? Did you, as a sense of process, did you have to complete each character's arc, knowing that, you might feel a certain kind of way as an individual? Or did you just, very seamlessly bounce back and forth?
Well, really, I relied a lot on research. The sad reality is that because this is our now, there's tons of perspective. I interviewed dozens of police officers of different races, background, economic, where they come from. I interviewed young people. I interviewed mothers. And so it was very important to me that there was an authenticity and a responsibility to the audience member who I'm sure so many of us are 1 degree or 2 degrees away from someone who's been either, brutalized or even killed by the police. So I wanted to represent everyone's truth based on the truth that I found. I didn't want to, for me, this isn't about fantasy or creative license. It's about what did they say? When I asked the Latino brother who was a police officer, why was there, so many instances of police brutality? He, instead of really being introspective about trauma or the origins of the police, he went straight to administrative versus criminal policing, which isn't in any handbook. Right. He says, you just know when it's administrative, it's hello, sir, ma'am, how you doing? Can I please have your license? And when it's criminal, policing. It's get the F out of your car, get the F on
Right.
the curb. And it's just, they're normal. So, and then demonstrating that, and then talking about the Latino Hispanic connection. It allowed me to write those scenes between Felix and Theo. Again, I didn't want to take any liberties that were just based on some broad stroke. Every line you heard was based on some material line of perspective that I dug out of research.
Wow. It lives with you because of that truth. Did you know that you were going to play Link as you were writing this?
Absolutely. And I'll be brief. From Virginia to live with me in Pasadena, only to realize I'd taken him out of the frying pan and into the fire, because now, instead of him having to deal with a school that was miseducating him, he had to deal with riding his bike through an affluent neighborhood. When I get pulled over, or if I get pulled over on my bike, I had no answer for him. I couldn't tell him to reach for his phone. Basically, I just told him, put his feet down, hands up, make eye contact. So there was humanity. They could see his baby face. And I realized I was traumatizing him and further traumatizing him. And for all of my films on the Black, culture and movement, I had no answer for my 13-year-old son on how to protect himself from the very people we pay. And that was, that precipitated the writing itself.
What sort of direction did you as cast members receive to hold those different perspectives? And Theo, I'm going to save you for last, because I know you as such a gentle spirit. So the veracity that you kind of project here is insane. So I'm going to save you for last for that one. Milana, if you don't mind starting us off.
Yeah, could you? I just want to make sure I'm clear on the question.
Sure. So with the perspective of being a heartbroken mother, what sort of direction was Nate able to give you so that you could hold that energy in all the different presentations that we see?
I'm a Black woman in America.
Preach it.
What I was able to contribute to that, because that's so, as you said, the heart, the compassion, the humanity, because I've met women, I know women. I know a woman that's very dear to me, my godmother, whose son was taken by the Inglewood Police Department. And I saw something in her that I could not necessarily mimic, but I could empathize with it. I could understand it. And as a Black woman who has the desire to be a mother soon, my desire cannot be disrupted by the thought that my child may be taken by the hands of the police.
Oh, that's so well said. I'm sorry, that's just to move on before I get my chills and my feelings all going. Shane, what about you?
Well, when Nate explained the story to me and we were talking about it, he said that the story is going to be told, through the perspective of you and your film crew. And so it's almost as though the perspective that we see me in the story as the audience, who then
such a unique way.
Right.
When this came up, I had been going through my own process because I have two young sons.
Mm-hmm.
I've been constantly in my career trying to never be put in a box for my ethnicity, for my race, for my nationality. Like, I've always been trying to be who, just be the character. Don't know Theo.
Right.
Don't know me. I don't want you to know me. You're one of the few people that knows me. I want to be my characters. You know what I mean?
Right.
But what I did in my own personal life is, like I said earlier, while we've been doing this press tour, I grew up 6 miles from Eric Garner, where what happened right there intrigued me is I've gone over to Iraq, Kuwait. I've been with all the soldiers. I've done USO tours. I have family members that are cops. I have family members that are incarcerated. I've covered the gamut of cops and criminals. And one thing that has scared me my entire life has been power.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in the industry that I'm in, Hollywood, which is the biggest abuse of power. You know what I mean? I'm here who get in a position of power, and regardless of their color of skin, their entire being changes. Wow. Something happens that I cannot understand when I talk with them. How did they become like this? Because no one is the villain in their story. Everybody is the hero of their own story, even people who do atrocious things. Now, I'm not saying that he was an atrocious person. What I'm saying is that he had a belief system. We celebrate gangbanging. We celebrate certain things. We don't celebrate. And in their mind, they've always felt like the underdog. They don't feel like the criminals. So none of us are going to prove him wrong.
Right.
That police officer. And you talk to many cops. There are people who stormed the Capitol who believe they're right.
100%. 100%.
And so again, for me to get into this, it always comes from a place of being that they think that they're being truthful, that they can never see any way. There's another police officer in the film who has a come to Jesus moment if we have a different thing. Right. But he does not. He does not. He thinks this is all making things worse.
Right.
And there are people that that's why I don't try to figure out people anymore. I just look at their journey and try to maybe understand a little and go, I get that. So with Nate did something that's one of my favorite things in the world, which is like, hey man, it's all right there for you. You need me, I'm here, but it's all right there. Like Shane said, you got this.
Right.
We're going to do this and we're going to figure it out. But what I want to say about this film, what I want to say about everybody on this call and why this film works and why it resonates so much. I'm out here on this project for the next couple of months, and I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say, hey, man, I want to talk about American Skin. Like, they just want to talk about it.
Yes.
They don't even want to say, like, good job. They want to talk about, hey, man, tell me about how was it making that? What was this? Did you guys talk on the side? You do. Here's what I want to say about this. There's very like.
Right.
It's in there for them to understand. This is not a one-sided film. It's multi-sided.
Yes.
So for that, I think that's why with a cast like this, come on,
man. Yes. Without question, the ability to invoke so many different thoughts, so many different, ways of thinking, perspectives, points of view, the whole nine. It's incredible. And without question, this movie invokes innate visceral reactions from, tackling such, topics of police brutality, the realities of systemic oppression, racial profiling as a prejudicial tool to the debate between vengeance versus justice. To create such content, what was your most intense experience on set? I mean, because you're going to have people carrying these emotions as they're, crafting these characters. What was your most individualized, intense moment on set? And Jordan, if we could start with you, or I'm sorry, not Jordan. I'm all in your character. I'm sorry. I live with you like that. Shane.
That's a good thing.
It's good. Man, I think I don't know. I just didn't expect to be, it's a tricky situation because I didn't expect to be at.
In the books. We met in 2008 on a film called Blood Didn't Sign My Name. It was an intro, and I and Nate's character kind of go on this quest to seek justice, which obviously doesn't happen. And now we're in a film where justice is on trial.
Asking is because there is an undeniable sensitivity that you guys carry in that scene together. There is, you are exploding as a woeful mother, 100%. But there is also this acting of you guys as a couple that is unspoken, but is so real. It's without, like, it is exactly what I would do as a significant other. It is on every level. If I'm the person that's exploding, I want to be held. Hold me because I need it. If my significant other is doing that, hold her because I've got to keep her safe. Like, I can't give you your roses enough. The two of you in that specific scene for you.
The whole experience was, it almost seems that it's a little hard to. I've been doing this 20 years, and I've been on probably more sets than I should be, and which is a good thing, but probably some I shouldn't have been on. But I have never seen or been a part of something where every single person is there for. It was bigger than the movie, if that makes sense.
Yes, very much.
It was bigger. It was bigger than maybe even the message. It was like a community of people who said, we're doing something that is bigger than us. And when you take self-serving out of this business,
Mm-hmm.
you find true glory. Like you find something that is, it's such a rarity, because this business is all about self-serving.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when you take that all away, Nate had something where it just all went away the second you came in. We were on the clock. We had to go. Like, we got to get it done, right? But that wasn't even a question. And if we had any hiccup where someone was like, something happened, it was handled not just by one person, but together.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it was just, I have never seen. So for me, watching the certain scenes that really point me, I have to be impacted as the police officer,
right,
but not too much. And that was crazy, especially having, again, a 5 and a 3-year-old, and at the time, 4 and 2. That is, so that moment I will never forget, because he was inches away from me, and I'm like, how do I stay in this character?
Right.
And there's that trick. So that was a moment. But just in general, I think it's an unmatched experience.
That's beautiful. Nate, what about you? And this is a challenging question, I'm sure, because there's so much.
Yeah, and it's really special hearing from my friends on this call, because we've had a lot of conversations about doing the work,
mm-hmm.
But sometimes it takes this type of moment and quorum to hear specifically how it impacted people, because on the day you're just serving,
Right.
I think the most impact, there are 2 moments that happened to me, and one, even thinking about it as it comes in, I start to get a little emotion. But the first, we're in the trial, and all of a sudden there was like a heaviness happening throughout the room. Like, you could just feel this purge. And I would love to hear you, Dr. Vanessa, at some point speak to this. But there was a communal trauma being confronted. I think that's the thing that we forget. We were all purging trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Me as the father of my son nephew, feeling so ashamed of not being able to protect him. Me on those marches and seeing those mothers, whether it been Michael Brown's mother or Eric Garner's family, being feet from them, seeing the bewilderment and the fact that there was no accountability. Like, there's that's not fair. And then there's no. So the world's just going to keep going.
Right. Right.
Like, oh, the lawyer that was with us is going to another case. And
right.
Wait. The press is leaving. Like, it's what is going, like, Tamir Rice's mother. I just can't imagine that type of trauma. And we've seen it, whether 1 degree of separation, 2 or 3. And what I saw collectively was people they trusted the shooting part and started the talking part.
Right.
Now, you have to understand, not only do we have people, and so a lot of the prison, several months before. So these are returning citizens they've never been able to speak their truth and express their trauma to the people that were traumatizing them, whether symbolically, figuratively, or explicitly. So all this will happen at once. And I don't know if you guys remember, I'm sure you remember, everything stopped and we began to speak. And there were extras that were talking about their experience in America. There were immigrants, people that you'd only seen in character. And now the entire room was having a therapy session about what they felt. You remember that, Theo? And
yeah,
Jane?
Like, it's crazy.
It was insane. The second thing I'll bring up, and this is the thing that hurts, is John Singleton died while we were shooting. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
We were shooting, and my first AD, Van Hayden, came up and said, I have some news. And he said, John Singleton died. And I went into the room for 5 minutes and wept and came back and had to come back to work. But it's very interesting to me that we're only able to be on this call because there are elders and ancestors where we were and where we want to be. Mm-hmm. And we have to draw on them. If not for his work, if not for Boys in the Hood, he created a genre.
Yes.
So I think those are the things that I remember most. The community, the most emotional, moment, when I was with Milana and seeing her having to do that over and over again, but seeing my mother and her, seeing my aunts, and I just got chills because I kept thinking, I hope this never happens to me. You know what I mean? Like, man, I hope, it's a movie.
Right.
But I was like, I hope this never happens to me. I hope this never happens to me, But yeah, so those are the things that, there are many things that stand out, but those are the things that come to mind now.
Of course. Vanessa, this is your world right here. Jump in.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to hear you talk about trauma. And I believe the tagline for the movie was like, we taking power over that story. So in therapy, we want you to be able to tell your story the way you want to, not the way it was written for you. And so I think that with racial trauma, it's different because so much of the rewriting needs to be done by the people in power. So the people who may not understand racism, don't know what it's like, that trauma is so, it's just heavy because it's always there. And no matter what we do, always there, because the people who need to change it are maybe not ready to have that conversation, don't want to, what have you. And so I can imagine that, like, even, Pollyanna in it, like, oh, everything's just going to be so great after we do this. But, there was some uncomfortable truth to it. And I think that's what made it exceptionally powerful.
Absolutely. And Vanessa, for you as a clinical psychologist and as a Black woman, did those two identities, and honestly 3 identities, because there's a clinical psychologist, there's a Black woman, and then there's a Black woman who is a clinical psychologist. Did that shape your viewing experience as you were watching it?
Child, yes, it did. And I think, particularly because I saw so many of my clients, I primarily see Black people in my practice. And I think, over this past summer with, George Floyd and all of the uprisings that happened, particularly Jacob Blake, which again was very central to us, tears in their eyes, like, I have a Black son, what do I do? What do I do? And having to hold space for them to feel that, and also deal with my own stuff while I'm listening to this woman cry, knowing that I have no answers for her. And so I think watching that movie, it was simultaneously validating and disheartening, because again, it just is a grim reminder of where we are as a people, as a nation, as a culture, but also extremely validating because I feel like you absolutely got it right. Like, sometimes you see these depictions and it's just like, what is this? But this just so validating to me. And again, being sort of in the trenches every day and dealing with people who are experiencing racial trauma, it was just so validating. So I think that sort of shaped my viewing of it. Absolutely. Of
course. Time. I've never seen time be such an advocate to a movie. Obviously no one could have predicted, exactly how 2020 would mirror, the civil unrest that framed American Skin. As history unfolded, how quickly did you see that correlation? How quickly did you say, we just made that?
Yeah. I probably said it 12 times leading up to George Floyd because I'd seen 12 videos over the course of that next year. I think we forget just how often brutality is the baseline of our narrative, and control and coercion and all these things. We need body cams, because if they have body cams, George Floyd in pretty much real time being squeezed to death, there were families that said that happened to us, and we will never know their names.
Right.
So when people talk about how timely the film is, I'm like, yes, it's time. Before that, all the way back to the plantation, when the patty rollers were patrolling the plantation. Now they patrol the block. My fear, and what you said, Dr. Through, they'll see how quickly not even allowed to grieve. We're just not allowed, because our grief will translate into an action that will subvert their subjugation. And when that happens, they're losing, what you said, Theo, they start to lose power and privilege. And we see things like we saw on January 6th. So to not, because we know how this country works, it's designed so it doesn't change too quickly, right? Hey, let's get this basketball back on TV now.
Ooh.
And I'm not trying to disparage my brothers and sisters who play. I'm saying there is a systemic issue at play. And we can't just say that cop needs to go to jail because what he did, and now we're happy. Woo, we fixed that. That's not how it works, because when he goes, then the academy fills those boots within minutes, and then those people make the same mistakes. You know, so I just think that we have to be less or more concerned with our own personal accountability when it comes to how we are contributing to the narrative as oppressors or the you know, hopefully not forever, the oppressed. So what you said, Dr. Vanessa, it's you get it and you got it. You know, when you write something, you never know how people are going to respond. And people even ask me, did you have alternate endings? What you think? I said, I knew exactly frame for frame what I wanted to bring. Every single person was absolutely intentional. What these actors don't know is that they didn't have the ability to say no. I would have followed them around and shamed them into saying yes. Milana, we talk on the phone. If you remember, Milana, I don't know if you remember, I have a good memory about these things. We got something I've been working on. I don't know if I told you. No. And usually people in Hollywood say that. It's like,
okay,
I got something for you. Yeah, we're gonna talk soon. But this thing, like I said, I got my nephew at 13. He is now the very first man in my family to get a master's. He's at USC getting his NFA. And fine happened, you know. So Theo, you know, I all but begged everyone. Shane, he auditioned for me or something well before.
You didn't beg me.
I
begged you, brother.
I took Shane to lunch. I got his number from a casting director, Mary Vanu and Michelle. And I said, this actor was so brilliant. Can I have his number? I called and said, I want to take you to lunch. He was like, what? He comes to lunch and he's just like, what's happening? I'm like, brother, I have a script. It's not done. I was writing the speech at that time. Wow. And I said, but Link isn't the star of this movie. He's not the protagonist.
That's right.
Jordan drives the narrative, captures the narrative, and then brings it to the world. Link is a grieving father. Yes, we identify with him. But if not for Shane, then what happened inside that room never makes it to the masses.
He also said, if I have to shoot this movie,
no lie whatsoever. Oh my goodness. Okay,
and the one thing I just want to don't dismiss the diabolical nature of Hollywood, that the meaning that when some art to see and view as it can be made, and the reason being, I'm good, right? And this is where it goes back to, you know, government officials sending their kids to war, right? It's easy to set a draft when you ain't got to be the one who's sending your kid to war. I think that it's a long time ago. It's yesterday. You know what I mean? But if people will always find a way out, and especially people where everything's good and they have everything. So I think that my biggest thing here that I've seen with this film is you're not going to convince them need to. They got jobs. It's like the pandemic that we're all going through, right?
Of course,
there's people who are greatly impacted, and there's people who are 4, 5 times, 6 times richer than they've ever been. And they're like, man, let this shit run forever. You know what I mean? They're cool with this film is it's revealed so much about people I even know. But just even the fact of viewing it.
Right.
Because of their mindset, to not even be open-minded enough to maybe watch a film. You think they're going to be open-minded enough to change?
Coming up on time, but I want to give so much love and adoration to all of you for joining me today. This was an amazing conversation about an even bigger, better movie. This project is a game changer. And Nate, I really, truly hope that the world embraces the truth that you have shared through this project. And before we get out of here, I want to give everybody an opportunity to say where folks can find you on social media, or maybe give a shout out to your next project. And Shane, we'll start with you.
Folks can find me on Instagram as Shane Paul McGee, if they're looking.
I hope you get flooded and inundated with all kinds of fan service. Miss Milana?
I'm on Instagram at Milana Jamae, and I'm on Twitter at It's Milana Jamae. I'm also going to be on Animal Kingdom this season for the second time.
Excellent. Vanessa?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Dr. Vanessa Hints. And thank you so much for allowing me to be in this space with you all. Very thankful.
Of course. Theo?
Oh, you know. It's Theo, you know, I wish I could say what I'm doing now. We just finished a couple of projects in a row. I'm on this thing for Netflix now, but they'll tell you soon.
Awesome.
They're keeping it under crazy wraps. And, And you know, yeah, social media, man. I don't know.
Of course. it's an animal. It's an animal.
Yeah, it's
Nate?
I'll just end by saying, you know, word of mouth has been the greatest thing for us in this film. We don't have a big marketing budget. You know, unfortunately, when you're making a film like this, they're not throwing money at it. You know, as my cousin would say, "Cousin Nate, are you rich?" I'm like, no, I make positive Black movies. There's not a lot of money in that. But I'll say this: if you have family members, suggest it to them. If you know white people, you know, a lot of times with music, we wanted to cross over. Films, we wanted to cross over. This is one that I think needs to cross over.
Yes.
I think the more people that see it, the more conversations will spill out of the theater or out of the experience into their lives. So thank you for supporting the film.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you to everyone on the panel here today. I want to thank the producers behind American Skin for getting behind this project. I want to thank Wizard for facilitating, bringing us all together today. I'm Victor Dandridge, and it has been an absolute honor to share time, light, energy with all of you. As Nate said, experience this movie because it will change you.